welcome to Real Estate Resource. Really glad you stopped by. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Hope you enjoy this video. Let's get started. All right. So thank you guys for being here. One of the things that we're going to talk, what we're going to talk about today is lead follow-up, right? Having a system for lead follow-up. And what I've been noticing, and as we've been doing, some of our other trainings and talking to agents is that I think, and even when Mike Ferry was here a week ago, he discussed aggressive lead follow-up. And I think that we're probably a little too lax or passive in our lead follow-up. So we want to talk about having a system to make our business more efficient, but also have the ability to be aggressive in our lead follow-up. One of the reasons why we are as passive as we are in lead follow-up is because we don't really know who we're following up with. All of our leads go into one bucket, and because all of our leads are in that one bucket, we may be following up too aggressively with the wrong leads instead of with the people who are ready to go. And then those ready to go leads are falling through the cracks and they're ending up with other agents. And one of the things that we need to do with our lead follow-up, the reason we have to be as aggressive as we can with lead follow-up is because our potential client, right, those leads that we're following up with, they're not just our leads. They're speaking to other agents. They're talking to other agents. So it's the one who's aggressive and who's following up the most consistent and asking for the appointment. And that's what aggressive lead follow-up is asking for an appointment. And so we've got to get to that place where that's what we're doing on a regular basis. So since we got some more people on, let's share my screen and let's see. So should be looking at a blank desktop at the moment, but that will change here momentarily. Let's do this. And now you should be seeing what says lead follow-up there on the screen. So let's get moving. So lead follow-up is the key. I always like to say lead follow-up is the key. Like the thing is that we prospect every day. And the majority of the appointments that we don't make while we're at the door prospecting. We do it, right? We make appointments while we're prospecting. It happens. It's just that more often those appointments come from our lead follow-up. And the purpose of the lead follow-up is to just set the appointment, right? Set the appointment period. And I think that's where some of the disconnect happens with lead follow-up is that the reason we don't do it consistently and the reason we're not aggressive in that lead follow-up on a daily basis is because it feels like it's another session of prospecting. I prospect 2, 3, 4 hours a day, right? And then because my lead follow-up is not consistent, I start to do lead follow-up. I have to call people that I spoke to the first time prospecting maybe a week ago or longer for some of us. And so what happens is I have to reintroduce myself. I have to kind of requalify. Hey, where are you moving to? Remember we spoke about, right? I have to do all that stuff. I have to ask all those questions. We have to kind of recreate the relationship we had that turned them into a lead to begin with. And so when that happens, it feels uncomfortable, right? Because we've lost connection with those people, right? That we didn't do lead follow-up in a timely manner, and maybe they're already working with another agent. And so it gets to be discouraging. And then we stop doing it even more, which is the exact opposite of what we should do. Is if I'm not getting the results from the lead follow-up that I wanted, and it's things like disconnect and time between contacts, and they're moving on with somebody else, then that means I've got to step up. And the reverse is true for us, is that we do less of it because we don't like the results we're getting from it. So we've got to make an effort. We got to make an effort to be consistent. Without consistent lead follow-up, you can't have consistent production. So when we start looking at schedules and the things we talked about, right? And one of the things we talked about is there's 4 things you have to do every day, right? Prospect, lead follow-up, negotiate contracts, go on listing appointments. Those are your 4 jobs. And the 5th thing is to pre-qualify everybody, right? Those are our 4 jobs mainly, though. And without prospecting and lead follow-up, we can't go on listing presentations or negotiate contracts. So the two main things that we have to do are prospect and lead follow-up. And the problem is that we don't do lead follow-up every day. We don't do it every day. And it should be something that's in my schedule every day to do lead follow-up. And if I'm not consistent in it, I can't have that consistent production that we're all striving for. Right? So if, number one, I'm not prospecting, and we know it's a dirty word to say prospect, so you can call it lead generation, whatever you want to call it. But if I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing lead follow-up based on the consistent prospecting that I'm doing, I cannot get to the point where I'm going on listing appointments and, negotiating buyer's contracts, getting those escrows. Okay. Efficient lead follow-up requires preparation. And when we're talking about preparation, it's having that system. And part of that prep is knowing what my leads are, identifying who these potential leads are. Do they fit in the right box? Am I spending time with the right people? And that's what I mean by preparation is I have to be prepared that I'm so organized with my potential leads that when I meet somebody who says yes, I know where to slot them and where they fit. And I know what I'm looking for when I'm prospecting on a daily basis. I know I have a target identified, that this is the buyer or seller that I'm looking for in my prospecting time. And when I do find that person that fits that mold, I'm putting them in the right place so that the lead follow-up that I'm doing is effective and efficient, and I can be aggressive in it because it makes sense. Okay. And if you guys at any point during this have any questions, just raise your hand in the chat and we'll go from there. Okay. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is define a lead. Okay. You have to know what your definition of a lead is. Let's see if it wants to move forward here. Your definition of a lead has to be congruent with your goal. Okay. So for example, if somebody has a goal to do 12 transactions a year, one a month, then your definition of a lead is safe to be somebody who wants to buy something in the next month or sell something in the next month, right? Because you only need to do one deal a month. So if the leads that you find are your hot, ready to go leads, if they're between today and 30 days from now, that fits your goal. But if your goal starts to climb past that 12, if you're looking at 24 deals a month, right? Where you have to, or 24 deals a year, where you're having to do 2 a month, then that means I have to increase, or actually decrease, should I say? I have to decrease the amount of time that my buyers or sellers have to take action, right? So if I'll take somebody up to 30 days because I'm going to do 1 deal a month. If I'm going to do 2 deals a month, then my leads, the ones that I really need to go out there and search for and hunt and find, are somebody who's going to do something in the next 2 weeks. If I need to do 3 deals a month, then that's going to be shortened probably to about every 7 days or 10 days. If I'm doing 4 a month, it's got to be somebody who's going to do something today or tomorrow, right? There's some urgency gets increased. Urgency gets increased as my goal gets larger. And so if your goal is to do anything more than 18 deals a month, 20 deals a month, 24 deals, or 24 a year, I keep saying a month, 24 deals a year, then your definition of a lead is going to be different than somebody who is maybe brand new or wants to do 6 to 12 deals every year, right? Your definition is going to be different. So when I say it has to be congruent with your goal, it has to make sense. Because if I have a goal of 36 deals a year and I say, well, my definition of a lead is somebody who wants to do something in the next 30 days, that doesn't jive. It doesn't make sense. Because if that's the case, if the people I'm getting are doing deals once a month, then I'm really stretching it out. I'd have to really generate a ton of leads to make the conversion make sense to get those 3 or 4 deals every month. Does that make sense? Is anybody not following? Does anybody have a question about the definition of a lead? No, you guys got it? All right. I'm glad. All right, let's move on. I have to be crystal clear. So when I say crystal clear, I want your definition of lead to not just be their time period, but an actual description of who that person is. Do they have money? Do they have good credit? Do they have a good job? Are they willing to do the things that I advise them to do in order to purchase a home? Right. So there's a thing that we look at when we start talking about buyers and sellers, and it's called ready, willing, and able. Right. Those are the things that we want to make sure that if we can answer those three questions, right? Are they ready? So ready is, hey, are they ready to take action right now? Right. That's ready. Willing is, are they willing to do things the right way, the things that are necessary in order for them to be a successful purchaser or seller? And able is, do they have the ability to do that? Do they qualify? Do they have the cash? Right? That's the ready, willing, and able. And sometimes what happens to us is we might find somebody who is ready right now, right? They match that parameter of the definition of a lead for me, that they're ready to take action now in the next 2 weeks. Okay. And then we find out that they're ready. Then we might even find out they're willing when we say, hey, these are the things that you have to do to accomplish your goal, right? These are the steps that we have to take. This is how we're going to show. This is how we're going to list, all those things that you go through in your consultations and your listing presentations that you're going to do, right? They're ready, they're willing. And then we find out sometimes with our buyers, they're not able. They don't qualify. Or we have somebody that's ready and able. They qualify, but they're not willing, right? They're not answering your phone calls. They're missing appointments. They're not writing offers. They're dragging their feet, right? Does that sound familiar with some of the buyers that you guys are working with right now? Even some of the sellers, right? They say they're ready. They're able to because they've got equity and they know they have an idea of what they want to do, but they're not willing, right? They drag their feet. They don't call you. They call me later, do this, right? Those are the things that are affecting this. So when we look at congruent with my goal, that's the time period. Do I generate a lead that fits in the amount of time that I need to have that lead converted into a client? The second thing is I have to be clear on who they are. Do they have the money? Who is the person? What's their age even? Who is it that I know that I'm working with, that I work with, and I'm successful with, and I feel comfortable and confident that I can work with, right? It's that kind of clear definition of who your lead is. And it should be written down because it should be your focus. See, what happens for us with focus is it starts out really, really wide, kind of covering a lot of ground, right? So, there's light comes in different intensities, right? Like you could have a flashlight that lights up the entire room, but you could have just the same amount of light come out of a laser and it's a pinpoint, right? And it goes to one place. And when we're focused and we have a clear definition of what our lead is, instead of having this wide focus like a flashlight where it's kind of anybody who says yes to us becomes a lead, we have a laser focus because we've defined who we're looking for. So as I'm prospecting and I have my mind set on what I'm looking for, the stuff that usually gets in the way, the people who are yeses but aren't ready, willing, and able, they're not all three, I'm able to avoid them because I'm focusing on the people that are all three. Okay? Questions? Okay. All right, so efficiency. Part of what we do is our job has to be efficient in order for us to be effective. So you've got to, that's why systems are so important, right? So when we're defining our leads and we're that clear on the definition of that lead, we're more efficient because we're spending time with the right people. We're not spending time with any lead that comes in. We're spending the right time with the people who are defined by us, ready, willing, and able by the criteria that we've designated and in the time period. Okay. So that helps you to be more efficient with your time. And what that does now is it reduces the risk of me losing leads. So let me explain to you what that means. You right now, or the majority of people, I won't say you guys, but the majority of agents, their leads go all into one bucket, right? So I meet a lead on Monday. I meet a lead on Wednesday. I meet a lead on Friday. I get a couple over the weekend in an open house, and they all go into the same bucket. And because I don't lead follow up consistently, right? I don't do it every day. When I finally do lead follow up the next week, I just start picking names out of that bucket because I don't have them categorized or organized. And I just start calling whatever lead is the first one that I find out of that group. And because I didn't have the definition, that first lead I call might be somebody who's not planning on doing something for the next 90 days as opposed to the next 30. And so I call them and I spend time trying to get an appointment, even though they're really not ready for an appointment yet. And by the time I get through that list of all the people I have to call, at the very end is that one great lead I had that somebody's ready to do something in the next 30 days. And when I call them, because I waited too long to follow up with them, they've started working with somebody else. Has that ever happened to anybody that's here? You call a lead, you call a lead, you call a lead, and you finally get them. Oh, no, I started to work with somebody else. Anybody have that issue happen to them? Yeah, I would say that probably almost all of us on here have had that. Just nobody wants to admit it. So it does that. By being organized and efficient in what I do with my lead follow-up, I do reduce the risk of losing out on those leads. Because remember, your lead is also somebody else's. So categorizing your leads. There's A's, B's, C's. Okay? Your A's, let's just for this example, for this class, right? Because we can't break it down for everybody. Your A's are 0 to 30, right? There's somebody who wants to do something in the next 30 days. That would be an A, right? For some of you, it may be in the next 7 days, right? It's 0 to 7, 0 to 14, 0 to 10. Your number is going to be dependent on your goal. Okay? The B's are the people that are the next group outside of that, right? So if I'm 0 to 30, maybe that's the 30 to 60s or the 30 to 90s. Okay? And then when I get to the C's, those are the people that are 90 days plus, right? Because when we talk about stuff, like even yesterday when we were in our boost camp, right? We talked about the idea of lead follow-up and having these long drawn out like time periods for some leads. So this is what the categorizing them is for, is because if I know that I have X amount that are A's, X amount that are B's, and X amount are C's, I know where I need to spend my time right now to get the conversion I need, right? I know what I need, right? I have A's or 0 to 30. So if I need a deal this month, that's where I need to spend my time in my lead follow-up. And in my prospecting, I know when I have to fill that funnel for that lead category. And what happens is this helps me to not spend time with the wrong person. So if somebody goes into the B category, which is outside of that A hot buyer, hot seller, I don't talk to them until I've gone through the A's and it's time for me to follow up with the B's. And the same thing for the C's. Okay. Any confusion? That makes sense to everybody? Any questions about these categories? All right. I have a brilliant audience, or as I like to believe, a great teacher. I'm a great teacher, so you guys are just getting it. So I'm going to stick with that I'm doing a great job and you guys are getting it. All right. So let's look at contacting the leads, because part of having a system is not just organizing them, but how do I contact them? When do I contact them? How do I approach each one of those categories? And that's what we're going to talk about, right? So let's look at the A's. The A's, you're going to call the A's every day until they set an appointment or they ask you to leave them alone. Now, I've said this to you guys a bunch. With that A lead, with somebody who says, I want to do something now, right? Because that should be your A lead. I want to do something now, whether that's in the next 30 days or the next 7 days. I want to do something right now. Then I should be calling them and asking for an appointment. And here's where my lead follow-up this is what lead follow-up should sound like, okay? Hi, Mr. Seller. I spoke to you yesterday. You said you had to be sold in the next 60 days. We really need to get a jump on that. When can we meet, today or tomorrow at 5 o'clock? That should be your lead follow-up. And if you're doing it consistent and you have the right leads to follow up with because your prospecting is working and you're filling this funnel of leads, then that should be lead follow up. As opposed to what I think most of us, our lead follow up is, hey, Mr. Seller, my name's Kyle. Do you remember I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago? You said you were thinking about selling your house. I'm just following up to see if you still want to do that. And now I have to reintroduce myself, kind of prospect them again because my notes aren't clear. And it's been so long since I've spoke to them. And so now it turns into a whole longer conversation and trying to spend time and convert them again. Like it's like I got to retain the lead instead of convert it. Does that make sense? Right? Your focus in lead follow should be sheerly to make an appointment. That's it. And if you consider somebody an A lead and you can't make the appointment because they're like, well, no, I don't need to sell right now, then guess what? They're not an A lead, right? So we got to put them in a different category, or they're not a lead at all. We got to just stop following up with them. You can put them into some other kind of marketing category or whatever you want to do, but you got to be honest with yourselves. And the thing is that with our leads, what happens a lot of times is, especially for those agents that have a lot of leads, like I got to follow up because I got a lot of leads, so I didn't prospect. Those leads start to feel like a security blanket, right? So we've got to get to the point where we're honest with ourselves, and we've got to really clean up those lead sources, those leads that we've collected. And we got to clean them up, and we've got to put them into the categories and know what they want to do and really spend time with the right people. And so you might find out that the 10 or 15 leads you thought you had are going to turn into 2 or 3. Okay. But you've got to be honest with yourself and do it, because if you don't, all you're doing is postponing your ability to do business. So the B leads, right? These are the ones that were just outside, right? So if we're going off of the definition of that 0 to 30, these guys are the 30 to 90s or the 30 to 60s. Okay. I'm going to call them every 2 weeks or once a month, depending on where they are, right? If somebody tells me, well, I'm going to do something in like 45 days, right? Well, then I might call them in a couple weeks, right? Cut the time in half, 2 or 3 weeks, cut the time in half from that 45 days. And then I'm going to ask them, but it's going to be based on what their target date is, right? So if they're 90 days out, I'm not going to call them. I'm going to call them maybe once a month, right? For the first day I meet them, I'll wait a month and give them a call, just kind of find out if they're on the same timeline. Those calls are a little different, right? When I'm doing it, right? If somebody's 90 days out and I'm calling them a month from the day I met them, I'm just going to call and say, hi, Mr. Seller. My name's Kyle. We talked about a month ago. You told me you were moving in this time. I just am calling to see if that's still the plan or if anything's changed. No, that's still the plan. Terrific. I'll follow up with you. Now, with these longer term ones, not only am I calling them that once a month or every couple of weeks, they're also in my CRM that we've talked about, and they're getting drip emails from me. So hopefully what that does for those longer term lead follow-ups is that it keeps me a little bit front of mind because I'm still sending them emails. So it's not just that once a month, right? So they've seen my face, they've seen my name, they know that I'm out there. And so again, I'm not so worried about what happens with these. I just want to have a system to do it because my focus is on the A's. And I'm always prospecting to keep filling that funnel of A leads. Make sense? So then we look at the C's, right? These are the really long-term ones. They're the 90-day plus. Right, because we all have some of those. Oh, I'm going to do it in the fall. As a matter of fact, I just talked to somebody yesterday that said, well, we're going to sell our house for sure. We want to use you, but it's going to be in the fall, right? So you still have to keep up with them. And that's it. I'm going to call them once a month, once a quarter, again, based on their target date. And then I'm going to move them up. They're going to become a B, then they're going to become an A at some point. Excuse me. Right? So I have to keep, my organization has to make sense. So if somebody goes into my system as a C, at some point they're going to move into a B category, and then they're eventually going to move to an A when we get closer to their target date. And then when we get closer to their target date, where their target date makes sense, where they're in that 0 to 30 period and they haven't already done something, then I'm going to be calling them every day saying, hey, we need to set an appointment. You said you wanted to be sold by this time. We're behind schedule. Let's get going. When do you want to meet, today or tomorrow at 5 o'clock? So those B's and C's, the conversations with them are not going to be asking for appointments. They're going to be just managing them until they become an A and I can ask for an appointment. But you got to be able to manage them. The problem is, again, is that we don't know who's who. And so we spend time with everybody. And this is what we're trying to do to make you more efficient is I'm going to manage the B's and C's until they become an A. And then once they become an A, then I'm going to start asking for the appointments until they set an appointment or tell me to get lost. So questions to this point, you guys have to have some questions. Nothing. Look, how many in here right now have done some part of this? Because, we've talked about this in the past. It's been since August of last year that we've really discussed this stuff, but is anybody using this at all? Well, Amaret has a question, so go ahead, Amaret.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a couple buyers who say they're qualified already, and they'll tell me I'm qualified, but I don't really want to buy anything just yet. I'm not in a rush. Unless you can find me something, then I'll move. They're kind of vague.
Okay. So first off, why are they wanting to buy?
One is a second property. It's just going to be a weekend home. And the other one, they are just tired of renting.
Okay. So one of the things that we want to focus on with anybody who becomes a buyer is, are they motivated? Right? Remember what we talked about, ready, willing, and able. So you have people that are able. What you don't know is, obviously they're not ready because they're like, we're going to wait. So they're not ready. So those buyers are people that you could have in your drip campaign. You could call them when new listings come up, but you've got to prospect and fill up those A's that are ready and willing and able today. Because what happens is that for you, and I'm not saying specifically to you, but as a buyer, what happens is we have these people, as an agent, we have these buyers that are qualified, but they won't take appointments. They won't do anything. Like they're not excited to take action today, right? They're not motivated to take action today. They're kind of like, well, if you find me the perfect deal, I'll jump right on it. And the problem with that for us as agents is we take that person, right? Or those people, those two buyers that you have that are kind of the same thing. And we live off of that because we're like, that's going to be an escrow someday. And it takes our focus away from doing the things that we need to do, which is to find the people that are ready, willing, and able to do it today, as opposed to at someday. Right. And so I think that you don't let those people go. You check in with them, you follow up with them, you treat them kind of like a B, right? They're not an A because they're not willing to do something today. So you treat them like a B. And you send them drip campaigns. And once in a while, when a property that you come across or comes up here in the office that fits the criteria that they're looking for, you send it to them and say, hey, we have an opportunity because this is in the office. Would you like to see it? And I'm not saying you don't throw them out, but you just don't treat them like, hey, they're going to open escrow tomorrow for me, because you got to spend your time finding those people. Because you're not going to convince them. You're not going to convince those people.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that helped.
Yes.
And so Alfredo says he uses the ABC technique, right, where he categorizes those potential leads. Okay. All right. No other questions? So here's the thing about putting this system to work. The categories of your leads, the great thing about it is that you can kind of use it. It fits into different systems. So obviously all of us, well, let's not say that. We should use a CRM, right? An automated system, a contact resource management system, right? That kind of thing where we have their emails and their contact information, and we have some automated things that happen. But not all of us, to be honest, are able to really wrap our heads around that. And we like to be, instead of digital, we like to be analog, right? We do things a little bit more manually. So when we're talking about putting the system to work, you could do it as simple as a 3 reminder, right? Excuse me. I could have lead sheets. I could have lead sheets that have all the information for those potential leads. I could have folders separating or binding, like dividers in the binder, separating the A's from the B's from the C's with their information and their time periods on there. And I could go through those A's and B's and read through it and follow up that way. I could do it with 3x5 cards, right? Because that was the old Mike Ferry way. Was I have 3x5 cards with all my leads written on them, and I have a recipe box that has, you know, the A's, the B's, the C's, and then is broken down by month and date, and I have those cards in there, and I can flip through and pull those cards. And if these are the people I have to follow up with, I can pull that pack of 3x5 cards out, put them in my pocket, and when I'm out door knocking or taking a break, I could just grab those and make those lead follow-up calls. Or I could use it with the CRM, where I have everything set up and I create those groups, you know, lead A, lead B, lead C, and I set up systems and drip campaigns and reminders and things inside my CRM that are more digital and automatic that help me to be more efficient in my follow-up. Now, would using the CRM be the most efficient way to do it? Absolutely, 100%. Right? That absolutely would. I find a CRM, whether that's Business Builder or Lions Desk or Exact or Top Producer, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with and that you'll use, that's the one you use. But to put them in there, I'm going to be, when we talk about efficiency, right? We talk about the idea of efficiency. I'm going to be more efficient with the CRM because it's going to do some things that I can't do manually, right? Or that I could, but I won't. Like, I'm not going to go through my 3-ring binder every month and send out an email to those people to try to stay in front of them. And I'm not going to go through my 3x5 cards every month and handwrite an email. I'm not going to do it. But with a CRM, I can put those groups into drip campaigns that fit their criteria, who they are. And that way I know that those emails are going to go out. Even if I drop the ball, maybe I don't make the phone call I need to make, at least I'm getting some touch because that email is going out. And at least I have a chance to have some level of reminder to call the people, because in the CRMs, even the basic ones like Business Builder, if I sign into it, it has a to-do list on the first page. It may not actively tell me or send me a message and say, hey, you need to pick up the phone and call Amaret. But when I sign into it, and if I make it a habit to sign in every day, there'll be a to-do list that says you need to call Amaret. That's what our schedule says. And so the CRMs, as much as we kind of are, I think we get nervous or a little afraid of it because it feels daunting. And it does, right? To get started, to get everybody in and to create the groups and to create the campaigns and to really get the process started. Yeah, it does take some time. It does take some commitment. But I promise you, if you take the time and make the time and the effort to make this clean and organized and use your CRM, it's going to make a huge difference in how you follow up and how you stay in touch with those potential clients. And it's going to increase your conversion. So the 3-ring binder we talked about, right? Lead sheets with the right information, the binder dividers for each category. Just kind of went over each one. And these are little. Also, you could have in there dividers for the days of the week and the months of the year. That gets a little, we were talking about a huge divider, but if you want to get that detailed, you can. I would just say that if you're going to put them as A's, B's, or C's, you just put them in order by when I contacted them. And then you just rotate those A, B's, or C's. Like I said, it's very manual and it's dependent on you making the phone call. And so again, because of who we are, we're human beings, we're not robots. There's going to be times that if you're using this 3-ring binder system, or when we get to the 3x5s next, if you're using that, there's going to be times where you're going to forget to make the calls just because it's not automated and just because there is no fallback. It's totally dependent on you knowing that today I have to do X. Same thing with the 3x5 cards. You have all their information on the 3x5 cards. You have a filing system to separate it by the category, right? Recipe box. You have that divider by the months or the weeks, right? And again, very manual. It's depending on you opening that box, pulling the lead out, making the phone calls, not having some backstop of a reminder. Now, like I said, the benefit is it is portable, right? I can grab 3x5 cards, keep in my pocket. I could take it with me. I could have it in my briefcase. I could take them in my car. I can make those phone calls when I get a chance, right? And with the CRM, I could create groups for each category. Again, we're just refreshing what we kind of had in the discussion already. I add reminders for the phone calls based on each lead category. right? Because I just said, even in the most basics, Business Builder is going to, at least in my to-do list on my dashboard every day when I sign in, is going to say, you need to call so-and-so. You need to do X, Y, or Z, whatever is part of that plan, that campaign, or the plan, the calendar I've set up for each of those lead categories. And if you have the more advanced ones, like, Lines Desk and Exact or Top Producer, they're going to send you active reminders that you need to reach out to somebody, that there's an action that needs to be taken with that client. I'm going to have drip campaigns. So now not only do I have the direct contact with the phone calls, but I have those drip campaigns. So even if maybe one day I drop the ball with the phone calls, at least I know that they're still getting those, monthly emails from me, or maybe even more, more constant than that. Right? Because this is a lead we're talking about. If they're an A lead, maybe they're getting 1 or 2 emails a week from me on top of the phone calls, right? Because I'm trying to convert that A lead to do something today. And it gives me, like I said, back to efficiency. It gives me the benefit of the efficiency, and I get more touches. It multiplies my work. Because the emails are happening. In some of those CRMs, text messages are happening. And then I'm making the phone calls. So if I'm doing that in a CRM, it's like having 3 of me, because I got one person making the phone calls, one person sending the emails, and one person sending the text messages. And it's automated. It's not something that I have to think about on a daily basis. Like, did I do that thing today? Okay. So again, we got to start embracing the idea of the CRM. The problem is that for most of us with the CRM is we don't organize it. And if we take this system and we put it in there, it helps things, right? So it's having any kind of system, whether it is your CRM, which I would heavily suggest that it becomes a CRM, or if it's a 3x5 cards, like Alfredo says, he does use the 3x5 cards. He does it that way. And he even admits, I need a CRM. He says, he just put that in the chat here, that he does do it with 3x5 cards. So we've got to look at it and say, how can I best spend my time in this business? Because one, most of us don't have a real schedule. And I think that as we start talking about all these things, lead follow-up and working with our database, and are we prospecting, and are we doing expireds, and are we doing for sell by owners, and what are all the lead sources? If we don't have a schedule from the beginning that we follow, right, all that other stuff starts to fall apart too, because I don't spend the time where I need to. So everything goes hand in hand, right? Starting that schedule, showing up all the time, defining my leads, having consistent lead follow-up, where I do some level of lead follow-up every day, where I prospect every day consistently, day in, day out. All of these things go together hand in hand. And if any one of them are weak, our production and our business suffers. So if my schedule's weak, it doesn't matter how good my prospecting is and my lead follow-up, because my schedule's weak, so I'm not doing this stuff consistently. I could have a strong schedule, right? I already have it lined out. I know what I'm going to do, but I don't follow it. So I don't prospect every day. I don't do lead follow-up every day, right? I could have a strong schedule that it's everything set up, and I follow it 100% for my prospecting, right? I do it every morning. I'm religious in my prospecting, but my lead follow-up is garbage, and I don't do lead follow-up every day. Then my business is going to suffer. So you can see, like, each one of these pieces that we talk about, if we're not 100% committed to them, we're not consistent in the activity we take in each one of those areas, and we're not aggressive, right? Aggressive in the things that we do, right? I don't prospect hard. I don't look for, I don't go out and search for the business. And then I don't do my follow-up aggressively, where I'm trying to set appointments with those people who said they want to do something. If those 3 things are not consistent, there's no way for us to be the producers that we want to be. So we've got to make that commitment in our business to, number 1, the schedule, number 2, the prospecting, and number 3, like, this is like the forgotten part of our business, is lead follow-up. And I think we push, right? Every time we have a training, every time we have a meeting, we talk about a schedule, and show up. That's great. We talk about prospect. Most of the time, our lead follow-up is just a passing thing like, hey, go prospect and then follow up on your leads. It's just as important, because I will tell you that 90% of your appointments are going to be made from your lead follow-up, not just from your prospecting. And yes, CRMLS does have lines desk that I think that you can get through as a realtor, or Downey Association of Realtors. I think they have a free version of Lines Desk, but to get really the more robust version of Lines Desk, you're going to ultimately end up paying for it if you want text messages and things like that. And here's the thing. I'm not going to advocate for one CRM over the other. I'm not going to do it. And the reason I'm not going to do it is because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what CRM I tell you guys to use. If it is not something that you're going to want to use, you're not going to use it. So you've got to probably do a little research, look at some stuff, get some walkthroughs, and pick which one you're probably willing to really commit to, because the best CRM you can have is the one you're going to use. And you guys really need to use it on a daily basis. And once you get it started, once it's up and running, you've got it organized and you've done the things that you need to do, the maintenance of it becomes easy. That's easier. That just becomes the part of the process. It is the getting going and looking at your leads. Look, first off, the hardest part's going to be for you guys is looking at your leads and getting rid of the ones that aren't real leads. That's hard to do. It's going to be hard to do. That you're going to say, well, this is not a real lead, right? And you got to call them all and ask them for an appointment. Or call them all, call all the leads that you have and reintroduce yourself. Find out if you really know what their true motivation is. Find out if they are ready, willing, and able. Did you think they were a B, but maybe they're an A because we didn't ask enough questions in the beginning? Do that first before you start with, okay, this one is an A, this one is a B, this one is a C, and then creating those groups and putting them in your CRM. First, talk to them. Don't just assume you know who they are, because when you took them on as a lead, you didn't have these categories in mind as how you were going to manage them. So let's go back. Let's revisit that list of leads that you have. And I know a lot of you guys have multiple leads in your notebook or wherever you're saving them, in your phone. Let's revisit all of those. Let's try to make sure that we have the correct motivation for each of them and that we're categorizing them correctly, not just from what we may remember from the last time we spoke to them. Do that first. Find out the real people. Then create your groups, then import them into your CRM, and then start this follow-up process. And you're going to have to do that a lot. Now, one of the things I will tell you is once we get to the point where we're organized on who our leads are and we know who everybody is and we're following them the right way with the A's, B's, and C's, what that will help us do is build a pipeline for our business. And then ultimately it makes your prospecting a little easier. Because once I know how many A's, B's, and C's I have, and when I analyze those numbers and I know how many A's, B's, or C's I need to have to accomplish the goal I have for that month, then when I go out to do my prospecting, what I could do is say, instead of prospecting saying, I have to go find a seller right now, I could say, hey, listen, I've got 4 A leads in my pipeline right now. In order for me to accomplish what I need to have 6. So this week, my goal is to add 2 A leads to my pipeline. In my B's, I need to have 9 more B's that will ultimately become A's in my pipeline to help me get to my goal. So in this week, with the 2 A's, I want to add, 4 or 6 B's. Does that make sense, right? Like I can start looking at my pipeline based on my the leads that I have in my system and how good and efficient my follow-up is. And I can start projecting what my production is going to look like in the coming months. But you can't do that until you really get the system into place and you're working it efficiently and consistently. All right. So we're done a little early. Anybody have any questions? Any questions at all? No, you guys got it all figured out. All right. So here's what I want to suggest. Again, like I said, next steps for you guys. If you're not already categorized with your leads, do that now. Call every lead that you have in however you have it. Call them all starting today. find out where they are. And if they are truly an A, ask them for an appointment today. Do that. Figure out which CRM you're going to use, because I'm really suggesting that you go the CRM route, even though you could do it more of that analog manual way. But the first thing you need to do, find out what leads that you have, who they are. You got to do that. That is essential to do. That should be the first step in your lead follow-up. Joseph, did you have a question?
Yeah. Can you, is it the same as hot, warm, and cold, or no? Like as a lead, ABC?
You could call it whatever you want. Like that, I'm just giving you an idea for category. Like the A's are the hot ones, the B's are the warm ones, the C's are the cold ones, if you want to categorize them that way. However, it's going to make you recognize and be able to use and be efficient in it, I'm okay with. I want you to have the organization.
Got it.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Well, I got one convert. So I think Antonio says he's going to start using the ABC method. So I hope so. And look, here's the thing, guys. If you need some guidance on it, like if you want to ask questions, you want to ask my opinion on things, you know where I'm at. You could always get a hold of me, and I'll help you as much as I can. So I hope that however you decide to do it, that you find some organization that works for you and you start really focusing your lead follow-up on that organization. That's all I hope from all of you guys, because I think that if you guys can get to be amazing at lead follow-up and doing it every day, you're going to find some more conversion in there. And some of that prospecting it's going to make you more excited to do the prospecting because you're going to be converting. I appreciate you guys all being here. Again, if you missed any of this, it will be on YouTube later today. So I'm always happy when you guys join me. Thanks for listening to me, and have a great day.